Hi, everyone. Welcome to another English Language Lithuanian Heritage Club lecture organized by the Lithuanian World Center. My name is Šarūnas Daugirdas. As you may know, the Lithuanian World Center is located in Lamont, Illinois, outside of Chicago, and is the largest Lithuanian cultural and community center outside of Lithuania. This lecture is part of our wider initiative to help members of the Lithuanian American community like you connect with your Lithuanian roots. In previous lectures, we have heard about Lithuanian song festivals, traditional Lithuanian food, and today we will be learning about Lithuanian genealogy, specifically about what can be learned by studying family history and how one can go about beginning a genealogical search. We thank the Lithuanian Foundation for sponsoring today's lecture. We are very pleased to have as our speaker, Evelina Viktorija Žemeikytė, who is a genealogy researcher and educator from Lithuania, who specializes in bringing this content to an English language audience. Evelina was born and currently lives in Žemaitija, the lowlands of Lithuania. Evelina conducted her first genealogical interview at the age of 16 for a school assignment before entering college to study linguistics and cultural studies at Vilnius University, and then organizational management at Vilnius College. Many years later, while continuing to look into her own family history, Evelina noticed how difficult it was for others to get started in genealogical research, and decided to organize a teaching session in her town to address this need. Initially conducting these seminars in the Lithuanian language only, Evelina learned that many diaspora Lithuanians were also interested in genealogical research, and so expanded her seminars to include teaching in the English language as well, noting that due to the language barrier, it was especially difficult for non-Lithuanian speakers to conduct Lithuanian genealogical research. As a continuation of this work, 2 years ago, Evelina started her website, stiprios.lt, stiprios meaning strong roots, through which she offers genealogical lectures, one-on-one consultations, translation services, and more. You are welcome to visit her website to find out more about these educational opportunities and Evelina's services. Strong Roots Genealogy also has a Facebook page and a Facebook group, which you are welcome to explore. We will put the links to the website, Facebook page, and Facebook group in the Zoom chat. This information will also be emailed to everyone here along with a recording of this lecture in a few days. And now, without further ado, I ask that you give your full attention to our lecturer, Evelina Viktorija Žemeikytė, presenting Our Roots, Introduction to Lithuanian Genealogy.
Thank you, Šarūnas. And hello to everyone, and thank you for being here today. It's evening here in Lithuania, but I think it's noon, right? It's noon in the States. So hello, thank you for hiding this time to come here and listen to what I have to say. And thank you to Lithuanian World Center for inviting me. It's a nice opportunity to share some things with people who have Lithuanian roots, have Lithuanian ancestry. So please just give me a few seconds to share my screen, and then we will start. Okay, now you should see my screen. See my slides? Okay, good. So I'll just say that sometimes internet connection is not the best these past few weeks because of some storms going around, and when they start coming closer, sometimes it's not that good. So let me know in the chat. I'll try to check the chat from time to time, and I'll just say in advance that if you have a question, please write it in the chat too. I will not answer it immediately, but at the end of this meeting, I'll try to address your questions and what you have to say. So yeah, feel free to share your thoughts in the chat section. And our today's topic, as Šarūnas said, is Our Roots, Introduction to Lithuanian Genealogy. And when Šarūnas contacted me and asked me to maybe address an audience to talk a little bit about Lithuanian genealogy and do a short lecture, I thought, what is the best introduction, So I'll try to actually present the opportunities of research. What can be done? Because in just one short meeting, not a lot of information can be shared, but I'll try to present you with the opportunities. And also maybe I'll just quickly tell you about the upcoming courses if you'd like to, get into learning on how to do that. So hopefully this meeting will be useful. Šarūnas already presented me, but I'll just quickly say that I got interested again after that first interview of Fernando a few years later, and started going into my own family history, and starting from that, I saw that, well, it's easier if someone shares some experiences with you. So that's when I started my educational work, and I have been doing educational work especially for genealogy, for 1 year and a half now. And for English audiences, I think I have started in March because someone started asking, if I'm doing English lectures. So I thought, okay, let's do it. And it was a success, and a lot of people were interested. So here we are. And my programs are both for children, for adults, private and open lectures, consulting, etc. And the topics are getting to know one's roots, family genealogy, heritage, language, and its history, local history and tradition. And some main principles before we go into the topic. I really like to just remind everyone about the principles that I feel are important. So, of course, no politics, because we live in these strange times and people are fighting, and we have this opportunity to unite through genealogy, so our common roots. But I feel that the most important principle when we do genealogical work is this: to accept history exactly as it is. And why do I start with that? And I usually start a new course or a lecture with this, is that sometimes, people are so hurt by the past that they are stopped from learning about it. They stop looking at it because it's too hurtful. And if we don't accept the history, that it already happened, that we cannot change it, and then we can only get to know it, we can learn from it, then it's difficult to go further. And maybe a month ago, I have met a woman who was 80 something years old, and she was so angry at her grandparents because they lived in a village, and the grandparents, I don't know if they were maybe poor or if they were very, if they tried to save everything, but they wouldn't give the grandchildren some milk. And she's still so angry at them that she doesn't even want to know their, like, the grandmother's maiden surnames. She just doesn't want to know. She came to a genealogy meeting with her friends, but then she left because it was too hurtful. So yeah, my idea is that sometimes even, if you look at the history, our family members, our ancestors could be the ones who got harmed by someone, like deportation, etc., etc. But also they could be the ones who did the harm. And if we start judging them, and that we cannot learn about them, we cannot get to know them, and we'll just stop there. So that's one of the main principles that's very difficult to do. And sometimes it takes time, sometimes not even days or weeks or months, but years, but it's important. So yeah, let's just have that in mind throughout this meeting and in our genealogy journey. And of course, affect each other, but I always say I have never had a problem with that in the sessions. So yeah. And now the topic is technical Lithuanian genealogy. So first, well, the natural question would be, what is genealogy? And we kind of have an idea. Genealogy, family, etc. We look at the word in Greek, in ancient Greek, it would mean, gene means family, and logos means science. So a science about family. But if we look at our understanding of the word, what is genealogy to us? Some people explain genealogy only as a study of facts. A person was born, they got married, they created a family, they had children, and then they passed away. And some people only look at that. I personally look at, well, as much as is possible, as a whole you. How the people lived, what was the context, what was their environment, how they got along, etc. So I'd say that genealogy is directly related, of course, to ancestors, but also to our heritage and culture. So I'll try to, connect all those things today. So the idea is this. I feel that after reading a lot of comments, feedback from people who have Lithuanian roots but don't live in Lithuania, who don't speak the language, I feel that the stopping point in the research is very often the last document in English, so the first document when the family came to the States or to another country, and that's it. So that could be the passenger list. And if we would like to go further into the past, people just stop there because, well, it's difficult. You don't know the language. You might not even know the correct surname or the name because they were maybe translated or distorted, changed. And I feel that's the stopping point. But I always like to see that everyone has a right to get to know their roots. So it's possible. And yeah, and we can even add that not only a right, but maybe also a privilege, and maybe sometimes even we must get to know our roots if you want to understand our past, our family's history, why the people were the way they were, and to do that, to get to know our roots, we just need to find a way. So it's possible to go further. It's possible to go further, and I'll try to share an experience with you. How should one start? So first thing that we should think about is a question for ourselves. So what do I actually know about my family history? And at this point, it's very important to not only think about it, but to write it down. And I'm a huge fan of writing things down. And if some of you are doing family history research, you probably have all these notebooks or pieces of paper written, and you have things written down, and probably only you can understand what you have written. People wouldn't understand your, chart and etc. But it's very important, if you are just starting this journey, ask yourself a question: what do I know about my family history? And write it down. Because sometimes we feel like we know a lot, and we actually don't, or sometimes we feel that we don't have any place to start with because we don't know anything. But when we start writing, some facts just arise from our memories, and we have a starting point. So I feel like it's important not only, to go to the next step and ask the family, but also to think about what we might remember, and not only theoretically in our mind, but writing it down. And then, of course, we go to the next step, to asking family. And very often people also think that they don't have anyone to ask these things about. Maybe the parents are not there anymore, or no elderly relatives. But it's a good idea to ask just everyone we know if it's possible, like cousins, even if they are not very much older. And your parents. And it might be that, for example, your parents or maybe some people, for some people, they might say, I don't remember anything. They might say, I don't remember the names, I don't remember the dates, I don't remember, or I don't want to talk about it. So I feel that it's important to understand that memory is a strange thing. And sometimes when we ask a direct question, people, it's the easiest answer. First thing, I don't know, I don't remember. Another thing is that the person might actually not remember at that moment when you ask a direct question. So I always try to ask indirect questions, and I advise to ask indirect questions, contextual questions. Not only, what was that person's name and when they were born and who is in this picture, but just provoke people to tell stories. What was their life like? How did they go to school? Did they go to school? Did they know how to read? What kind of books did they like to read? Where did they live? If it was a village or a town, if it was a house or if it was a block of flats, you know, etc., etc., etc. These contextual questions help us understand their context better. For example, why might they be hesitant to talk about their past? But also, when people, especially older generation people, start telling the stories, sometimes the facts they just, you know, they come back from their memories. You might say, I don't remember, but then they tell a story and the facts are hidden in the story. So, you know, there's the meaning here is to ask contextual questions. And then what's next? Well, so that's where the resources come in. I always say that 30 or 40 years ago, it was very difficult for people to research genealogy and family history, even, you know, 30 years ago, because there were no convenient resources. People would need to go to the archive and try to ask for something, and nothing is organized, you know, and even visiting relatives was more difficult, you know, especially here, for example, in Lithuania, if we look at it, not a lot of people had cars, so it was more difficult. And now in the modern times, it's a lot easier, mostly because the majority of resources can be found online. Of course, now there's a whole lot of things that are not online yet, and so we need to contact archives, but it's easier. And there are, of course, websites and databases online. There are digital archive systems. There are also online communities where we can ask questions. And what can we find there? So, of course, vital documents. And for vital documents, well, there are some laws related to that. For example, for birth records, we cannot reach birth records younger, let's say, than 100 years old because of GDPR, because of the laws. But older than 100 of years old, we will probably, I say probably because it differs on the region, on the parish, but we will find those records online. If we talk about the Catholic Church or the Lutheran Church, we can also access those. It's a bit more complicated, but still, we can reach some documents. We can reach Jewish documents. It's possible. Different types of censuses, other types of documents, information on deportation, graves, surnames, etc. Of course, also, we have the archives, and if the information is not online, then it can be found in the archives. So a few of the most important ones for genealogical research would be Lithuanian History Archive of the state, the Central Archive of the state, which has also, let's say, younger information, mostly from the 20th century. And then we have Lithuanian Special Archive, which covers the period of repressions, Soviet time, you know. And then we have also regional archives. So these are the main ones. For regional archives would be in the last place, but the three first ones from the beginning, the three are the most important for genealogical research. History archive keeps church records, you know, religious vital records, older censuses, revision lists, and Central Archive keeps, for example, applications to get a passport, where you might also find some pictures. They also have a separate part of the archive with photographs. They also have censuses of 20th century, so different things. And well, now I have told you about these resources, just, you know, abstractly, but where do we start from with them? You know, where do we look first? So I also think it's important to write down the events that are reflected in our family history. You know, of course, for you, it would be immigration, but for all of us, actually. And I always say to people here in Lithuania, they say, you know, no one went away, no one emigrated. That's not true. And I have an acquaintance who who said to me, I feel like every person in Lithuania has a grandpa's sister or great grandpa's sister who went to the States. And it's true. The same with deportation. Sometimes we feel like there were no deported people, but I don't think that there was a family that wasn't somehow affected by deportation. And if it wasn't directly in the family, it might be that the cousins, So yeah, it's also just a question of research. If we research it well enough, then we'll find deportation, immigration, etc. And there were also different types of, events and topics like book smuggling, or World War I, World War II. Lithuanian men were conscripted. All these different events, and if we think about just history events, we can write it down. What events happened by the time when our family history happened. And it also helps us to narrow it a little bit. If maybe we have heard that there were book smugglers in the family, or maybe we didn't. Maybe we'll find that out later then. Maybe there are more important things to start with. And well, we talk about history events, right? These situations in the history, but also we can think about such things as national culture, songs, folk art, folklore, art, music, crafts, even habits that are alive in our, I'm saying alive, but they are actually alive in our family history. If we think about things like Lithuanian songs abstractly, like there are Lithuanian songs, but if we know that our grandma sang the song, used to sing a song, then it's a different situation. It feels personal. It becomes personal. It touches us. And then we can research starting from that point, from the points that are personal and important for us. So, yeah, I feel that's important to, let's say, paint a picture, figuratively speaking, to write things down, to think about what we remember with children, what we remember about what we were told about, because someone told the stories. We just need to remember them. And all of that is encoded in our ancestry. And if we research our family, we are kind of researching our culture. And I know that for many people, it's important to get to know Lithuanian culture and the language and, everything about being Lithuanian. But I personally think that it's best to do looking through the lens of our family history, what was reflected in our family, and then we'll research our culture, because our heritage is directly given to us through our ancestry line, through our parents, through our grandparents, etc. And now, a question. What does it mean to be Lithuanian? And all of us might have different answers for that. It's a nationality, or maybe just, we live in Lithuania, but a lot of nationalities used to live and still live in Lithuania from the oldest of time. But, just to get into the topic more, I thought I'll just talk a little bit today about modern ethnographic regions, and I'll show you the costumes. I know that people might know about them, but I'll just try to quickly tell you about how they were created. So you might know that now the modern ethnographic regions in Lithuania, there are 5 of them. There is Lithuania Minor, there is Žemaitija or Žemaitija, then we have Aukštaitija, Suvalkija, or sometimes it's called Sudovija in English, and Dzūkija. And all these regions have, specific, sometimes you might notice that specific traditions are different in the regions, even for like Christmas or Easter, etc. A little bit different. Different songs, different language, dialects, and that's the main, difference, the language, it differs. If we would think historically, it was a little bit different, you know, and Samogitia was considered this huge part of Lithuania, basically the whole Aukštaitija that we see now marked in green. It was basically the majority of it was considered Žemaitija, Samogitia. But these were different times. But now we have this, you know, ethnographic regions based mostly on the language qualities. And I will talk about the dialects a little bit later, but now I just want to show you something about the customs, just really quickly. So here in the picture, you see the customs for Lithuania Minor. And usually people think that if these are national customs, that means that traditionally people would wear such clothes, you know, in their daily life or in church, etc. So not exactly. National customs for each region were created in the beginning of 20th century, basically in the interwar period, to, you know, increase this national spirit. People knowing their roots, you know, they have something because other countries were also creating these national customs. So Athenians thought, okay, we need that too. And they looked at some traditional pieces of clothing for each region, for each, you know, place, and created these sets of clothes that are now called national costume. And for example, here we see the Lithuania Minor clothing. It's, you know, these are different costumes for different ages, especially for girls. It differs based on the age, like the headwear, you know. But the main, you know, characteristic of Lithuania Minor is that usually they tend to be darker colors, especially for married women, and also you can see that for men, dark colors. Now, if we look at Samogitia, Žemaitija, then there is a lot of color red. And you can see there is a specific type of scarves and tying the scarf. It's a specific way to tie the scarf for married women. And these huge, you know, beads, amber beads, and a very important part of the Lithuanian, no, of a Samogitian costume are these huge woolen scarves that you can see here on the right side. But you can visually, you know, I'm not a specialist of national costume, but I just thought I'd show you some pictures and comment a little bit. For girls, married girls, you can see that they have a different type of headwear. It's something like a crown. It has a specific name. It's called renge in Lithuanian. And you can see, you know, nowadays, sometimes people don't know these things, and sometimes they, you know, mix these things up and wear scarves, you know, but usually, traditionally, it should be this way. The scarves are worn only by married women. And if we look at, and this mostly reflects clothes for women. You can see somewhere here in the back there is a man, but well, you can see that the idea is that a man wears a hat, a scarf, a long scarf. They also have specific names, but the idea is similar for each region, only the colors are a bit different and the model of the clothing is a little bit different. But for women, there are more differences. And for example, for Aukštaitija here, there's a specific kind of scarf or shawl, or it's also, you know, it reminds you of a bride. So there is this I sometimes I forget some words because, well, I am not a native English speaker, but you know, a whale, something like a whale. And for girls, for unmarried girls, you can see on the right side that they also have a specific type of crown, which is a different type of crown than in someone this year. And yeah, and different types of vest too. And a lot of color white, you might notice. Now, if we look at Suvalkija, which is this area for where Marijampolė is, Vilkaviškis, you know, then also a little bit like darker colors, a lot of patterns, different types of crowns for girls. So you can see, yeah. And there is this specific type of vest, which is a longer vest. You can see here on the right side, the yellow vest, and here in the middle too, a longer vest with these with this like long bottom side of the. And if we look at Dzūkija, the last region, Dzūkija is Varėna, Druskininkai, this area. And they have a very nice dialect actually. And again, color red. Also, you can see those caps and scarves, but again, for unmarried girls, it should only be a crown. So these are, well, usually worn in celebrations. People are now trying to revive the tradition of wearing national costumes in different types of settings. For example, I wore one to my college graduation, and a lot of people, think about it and try to wear national costumes more. Let's quickly look in the chat. The photo with the bridge, yes, it's one of the traditions of Joninės, putting the flower wreaths with the candles. Well, I don't think that people used to put candles in water in earlier times. I think it would be more traditional to just put a wreath and see where does it go. There would be no guess how the life will be, or when you get married, the life will be easy or not, based on how the wreath flows in the water. But yes, now we can often see that people put wreaths with a candle in the middle. And now if we talk about dialects, well, the main division of the language is Žemaitija dialect and then Aukštaitija dialect. But then Aukštaitija has these three main types: for Suvalkija, Dzūkija, and Aukštaitija. And they are different actually. So it's like a conditional division into dialect. And there are these smaller sub-dialects. And if you would travel throughout the whole country, you would hear that people speak a little bit differently in different places. Well, what I actually mostly wanted to say is that your ancestors spoke Lithuanian, and if you learn Lithuanian now, you might not be learning the language of your ancestors, because the state language, the state Lithuanian language, was only created, organized in the beginning of 20th century too. Before that, people mostly just spoke their dialects. So if you're learning Lithuanian language, you are learning the state version, the official version. But your ancestors spoke in their dialect based on the location where they were from. So yeah. And yeah, I just wanted to give you a feeling of the culture, a little bit of how it is done now in the modern times. I know that for a lot of people, it's important to have the national costume, and it's the same thing here. We kind of lost it for some years, I think, here in Lithuania. But nowadays, really, a lot of young people are trying to, to do at least something related to your national culture. And now, if we go back to genealogy, why do I speak about cultural things when talking about genealogy? Well, I think that context for genealogy is very important. Let's say about the language, right? You might think, okay, my ancestors spoke Lithuanian, but what was the exact language they spoke? And if we don't know the place, the exact place, we might not know. If we know the place, if we learn about it, if we look, if our ancestors were from that place for few hundreds of years, or maybe they moved from somewhere, then we can make these conclusions. But how do we do it? How do we get to know the culture? So the ideal version of doing this would be write what you know, ask your family, go through family pictures and documents, then go to the online resources. Like there are databases for the 20th century information. Then we have archive information, vital reference, and other types of documents, censuses, revision lists, etc. And then additional sources, and then we gather all this information together. But I say it's an ideal situation. Actually, it doesn't always happen like that, and usually it doesn't happen like that. We just go from where we can, we have something and we start from there, and then we kind of jump back and forth. Usually this is how it happens, as in any type of genealogical research. But well, the logical idea would be this. And let me just quickly check the chat. Okay, and then I just wanted to check if you can hear me well. Now I'll answer the questions later. Now let's talk about a few resources that you can use. Well, they might be known to you. I'll just present a few today because we don't have a lot of time. But first one, cemetery.lt. It's like not a full version of the word cemetery, but this is the main database for graves. So you have a situation of an unknown grave, you don't know where someone was buried. You can try and search in the system, but you need to know the original name in Lithuanian. If you know the original surname, you can try and search here. And for a lot of people, it's a success. It's the main database, but not the only one. There are some municipalities, and there are 50 or 60. Sorry, I think it's 60. Sometimes I make it a number. So some of them have their separate ones, for example, Vilnius, but the majority of them are using the services of this organization, and they are in the process actually of digitizing the cemeteries. But now you can see that they have more than 700 cemeteries digitized here in the system. And it's quite, well, easy to use. You can set it to English, and you just put the surname. If it's a popular surname, you will see that they will say there are too many results. You need to narrow down the search, and then you need to add a name. Or you can look in a specific cemetery. You write the surname, put in the surname, then you set it to a specific cemetery if you think that you know the place, and then you look in that specific cemetery. It's quite useful, actually. Sometimes there are some mistakes. Earlier, they would only put information based on the gravestones. So if there is no information on the gravestone, you might not find it. Now they say they are working on putting the information online from the old registers, cemetery registers. Well, we don't have a lot of them, I think, the old ones. We don't have a lot of the old ones, but they say they are doing that work. So maybe in the future we'll also have some older, information. But for now, most of the information is from the gravestone. Another source that I think is quite useful and actually interesting to use, because if you just Google things, sometimes you might not see authentic things, but here, limis.lt, this is a website where we can look up Lithuanian museum collections, which means a lot of old pictures and also documents, actually. And Lithuanian museums, and the number is increasing of the organizations which put information into the system, but the majority of the museums, which are bigger, they have their collections, they put them online, and you can look through those old pictures, for example. So you can put in a location name or a surname, and but it's important to only put it without the ending, because you might know that in Lithuanian language we have an inflection system, and if you put like the full version, then you will not receive all results, because the system will not recognize different inflections, and you need to put it like the stem of the word. Then you will see the results in all grammatical cases. So if you want to search for Vilnius, well, which will be a lot because Vilnius is big, but you will need to skip the 3 last letters and then put only Vilm, something like that. Yeah. And another thing I have mentioned communities. So online communities, well, people say that Facebook is almost dead sometimes and it has a lot of problems, but if we use it wisely, we can still use it for some good things, genealogy including. So you might know the first two groups on the top of the slide, Lithuanian Genealogy and Lithuanian Global Genealogical Society, but also Lithuanian group, Lithuanian Genealogy, is the main group here in Lithuania, which is also used by people from different countries who have Lithuanian roots. And also there is this group, Senos Nuotraukos Genealogy, or Old Pictures Lithuanian Genealogy. This one is of my own creation, and people post old pictures, and they include, if they know, the names, the surnames, the locations, or descriptions about the pictures. So you might be interested to look at that too. And Sharon mentioned that there is also a group for participants of my lectures from Roots Genealogy, okay, Genealogy and Heritage. So you might want to join that too, because, well, I share some news there and also people share their stories. So it's quite nice. Yeah. Now let me look at the chat. Okay. We'll come back to the questions. Now, really quickly, I'll just tell you that if you'd like to learn about what I listed, I only listed them today. We don't have, enough time. I have only shared a few resources, but if you would like to learn more, and there's a lot to learn, I have put this picture in to describe, to illustrate that the possibilities are endless. Although it might seem that when you don't know the language, it's difficult to find something and it seems almost impossible. But we have a lot of more topics to learn about, especially from with alphabet and name changes and border changes, name changes meaning when people emigrated, different types of topics, and especially finding and analyzing church records in Lithuanian, Russian, Polish, and Latin, because these are the languages in Catholic Church, which were used in different time periods. And for example, in Lutheran Church, they also use German. In Jewish records, they also use Yiddish and German. So different things, So if you'd like to continue learning, I am planning to start a course, Lithuanian Genealogy 101, in September. So we'll cover these topics. And then the second part, which will be the first group for this Lithuanian genealogy and culture, too, will include different types of topics related to genealogy and culture, too, starting from Lithuanian birth, marriage, and wedding, and the traditions and people who left a mark in Lithuanian and world history, traditions of Christmas period, Lithuanian rulers, it will be a 7-part course. So the first one will be a 3-part course, which will give you basics for genealogy research, and you can, just research. After each session, you receive information and you can start researching. And the second one will mostly be, how genealogy relates to culture, the context. So yeah, I'll Sharon has already put the links to my website in the chat, but I'll also give you the direct links a little bit later. But now, let's say you have gathered the information, right? You have these facts. So how do we organize that information? And I think that the first thing that should be mentioned is making copies, because we cannot trust technology entirely, but we can sometimes, papers get lost or there are, accidents, etc. So one of the most important things is to make copies, to keep your information in several places, in several devices, because even if we put the information online and we can reach it from different places, devices, it can still get lost because websites, they have problems. So yeah, maybe have a paper version and an online version and digital form in external hard drives. That's one thing. Another thing that I feel that for a lot of people, it's interesting and nice to do a family book. A lot of people write family books. Also, family movies is another idea that's floating around, and some people do that. But I think that the rule of thumb, just I'm just doing the full version now. I have more information about organizing, but yeah, the main rule of thumb would be to organize your information in the way that after we are gone, that our uh, grandchildren, for example, they can take this information and understand it. It's clear to them. If it's a book or if these are just, charts or tables with the information, when a person takes that information, they should be able to understand. And I know it's a lot of work and quite difficult to do. For example, I still haven't done it the way I would like. I have my, records gathered and they are, they have their labels, etc., etc. But it takes a lot of time and work. And I always joke that I work on my family tree and my family information for my whole life. And it's true. I will. But I have seen people who do these catalogs, paper catalogs. I also have seen a lot of people who use, digital tables and they fill in the information from the record. So any way we choose to do it, we should always think that if we cannot explain it, would another person understand what this information says? And now, time for your questions. So I hope that this information was at least a little bit useful and it gave you some idea of how to research your own family history and genealogy. And now I will be happy to answer any questions that you might have, if it's possible, And yeah. And so I have just seen this comment that people are helpful. People are really helpful. That's why I've shared these groups with you, because people are really helpful in the groups. If you ask, well, you meet Cat Michael, of course, sometimes people say, why are you so rude? But they ask rudely, they didn't say anything nice in the post. But people are really helpful and they usually like to help. And if you contact a person, maybe you have some family connection or you have just, contacted them through a book, they'll usually, divide they will spend some time and they will help you just, free of charge. And there are a lot of nice people, and I feel that it's important to help each other, because when I started, I got a lot of help, from others, and nice to be forward. Okay, I appreciate you describing these costumes. Yeah, maybe I haven't really pointed them out. I wanted to give you like the whole idea of the basic idea. Really, the skirts, the shirts, they are similar. The most important thing that is different for different ages and married and unmarried women is the headwear. So the main idea is this: the caps and scarves are worn by married women, and different types of crowns are worn by unmarried women. Also, it's important, I think I haven't mentioned it, if you see pictures of Soviet time, or if you have clothes from Soviet time, maybe in the family, or you have seen them somewhere, they will not be authentic, because in Soviet times they used the cheapest materials and they didn't pay much attention to authenticity of each region. So they are usually a mix of different things, not of a good quality. So that's important to note too. Now people try to really, look into the tradition of each region, use the right materials, use the right yarn, everything, so that it's really authentic. I have heard of plain language being used now in Lithuania. Is that more for international people moving to Lithuania or to unite the citizens? Well, it was created to have like the official language for documents, for books, Not a lot of books are written in dialects. now, in earlier times, if you think 200 years ago or 300 years ago, then writers would use their dialect to write books. Now people are trying to learn. And for example, if you try to write in some audition, sometimes I do, and there are some specific characters and people cannot read it. Although they speak it, they cannot read it. So I also have a cousin who likes to text in some audition, but he does this version of, he writes it the way he pronounces it, and sometimes it's not very accurate, although there is grammar created for some audition language. I say language because there are researchers who say it's a separate language. Yeah, but for example, if you go to an institution or you meet a person from another region, you usually try to use the state language. Of course, also people who learn Lithuanian as a foreign language or as an ancestral language, they usually learn, well, the state language. Although I know several people here in Lithuania who married into Lithuania. They came here to live with a spouse, the Lithuanian spouse, but for example, they came to some audition. And then there is a person, for example, a Turkish person who learned not Lithuanian, but some audition. It's just, it's fun. It's really fun, actually. And yeah, they don't know, they don't even know the Lithuanian language. They know some audition because that's what people speak in. And for example, if you go to Vilnius or Kaunas, these bigger cities, no one, well, you might hear different dialects because people come from different places there, but the city itself, the town itself doesn't have a dialect. Usually it's just the state language. Yeah. These are wonderful, well, these are valuable sites, for research. Thank you. Are most safe to use, or are there safety hints you can share with us to make our research safer? This is wonderful information. I'm not sure if I understand your question correctly, but I think that the only thing about safety I have kind of heard from people is they are hesitant to use family search a little bit. And they don't like to put their trees there, sharing information because of the religious things, yeah, because family search was created by Mormon Church. Otherwise, Lithuanian databases, you don't need to register for them. You just put information in, you search for it, and that's, even for the archive system, you don't need to register. You can, but those additional functionalities, they don't work well yet. So you just go in there and you just use it. Let's see. Okay. People are helpful from Facebook Lithuanian Genealogy groups. They located family I did not know existed. It was amazing. Yes. So people are definitely helpful. When I was starting with research of my Lithuanian family who went to the States, and I couldn't locate them because of the name changes some time ago, one person did 4 days of work free of charge. So it's just so nice of them. My outstanding missing information is that my father, born out of wedlock, knew his mother, but did not know his mother's parents or siblings. Is there a way a genealogist in Lithuania could now be able to research this? I tried to search many years ago, but it didn't work out. Well, I must say it depends on the region, because for Slovakia region, there are problems. Because that region belongs to, but it was a different historical situation, and a lot of records are gone, no one knows where. But for other, locations, probably yes. I mean, if the mother was known, well, we wouldn't know anything about the father then, but about the mother's parents, yes. Definitely, if we can locate birth records, and you can do it on your own. And I always try to tell people that although you don't know the language, speaking the language, or the languages of the records, Russian, Polish, I don't know Polish and I don't know Latin. but I can't find information about my family because you just need to know where to look and how to look. So yeah, that's the idea. That's why I'm doing this work, so that people can learn to do it themselves. Because you can, hire a researcher, they'll do some work, but then you stop there. If you learn to do it on your own, you try to do it on your own, maybe with the help of a researcher, you can hire to do some of the work. If you try to do it on your own too, then you can go further. You can further go. I'd like to find the exact location of the farm where my father grew up between 1920 and 40. I know approximately where it is within a few miles, but is there a resource that would let me know the exact location of the farm? Again, depends on the location. There are some interwar period maps in the archive, and those maps are good because well, not for all locations, but for some villages, you can find how the village was divided into pieces of land, and they have the specific names who owns the land, so it's possible. Can you clarify as to the best archival sources for the 1900 documents, birth, marriages, death, village census, etc.? I can give you a website now, but sorry, there are flies here. I can give you the website, but it might be difficult to understand it. It requires a longer explanation how to use. So this is a website usually used, but then you either need to, ask for explain it to you, or you need to try to look it up in the groups like Genealogy, because there are instructions there. And you can do it. You can definitely try to do it. And there are people, foreign people, who learns to do it on their own. It's possible. Also, well, you just I don't know if you know this, but family search is a good place too for reference, for church reference. If you go to the catalog search and put in the location, of course, not for every place. They don't have records for every place, but they have a lot of Lithuanian records. Definitely. We're curious to know if you traced some of your family to the US, and do you live in your family's historical area? I live close to my family's historical area, very close. But the ethnographic region, yes, the same. Some addition. And you sometimes might see that some Augustan people, I sometimes I say they are a little bit nationalist. Now there is this whole movement of speaking only in Samogitian and no Lithuanian, and a little bit frustration with Lithuanian people. The whole thing. I don't agree with all of it. I feel like it's important to protect the language, to keep it alive, and the traditions, etc., the history. But there's always a little bit controversy in everything. And yes, I have traced some family. Well, I have traced several branches. I have been in contact with some people, not a lot of people. Sometimes people who don't do their research on their, themselves. They are residents. They are here, history things, and yeah, one American researcher said, you should always start your message with "I don't want anything from you," because if we think, for example, my generation, if we think about our grandparents, they still had some contact with people in the States, and they would ask for things because for the majority of them, the qualities of life were quite, not good, let's say, and they would ask for things. And then the later generations would think, okay, so they want something from us. Well, usually nowadays, people just want to get in contact and to learn about the family, and that's it. Share pictures, because that's a thing. I think that a lot of people who went abroad and later they tried to protect the things that they had about their family and keep the pictures. And here in Lithuania, because of some history of 20th century, people quite often to this day burn the family pictures. And then it might be, for example, in my family, my dad's cousin, well, he went to the States later, so you know about her, you know, she still has Lithuanian name and everything, she speaks Lithuanian. She had family pictures that we didn't have because they were a lot here in Lithuania, and she had them. So. In addition to genealogy for different knowledge, can you help with retrieval of known or supposed documents from archives if you have ancestors who registered in German census of Lithuania in 1942? Can you help work backwards to fill gaps? How does GDPR in the EU specifically impact searching documents for these family members? Okay, let's start from the last question. So basically, the idea is this. You cannot reach birth records younger, let's say younger, you know, than 100 years, if you don't have direct proof that you are a relative, like documents, you know, records, marriage records, birth records. Then for marriages and for censuses, it's 70 years, and for deaths, it's 30 years. But that doesn't mean that you can reach all that records earlier than 30 years, older than 30 years. No, definitely not. You can ask for them. And starting from 1940, Lithuania had this institution, and we still have it, the Center of Registers, you know, so that's when it started. And starting from that point, we can ask for the information in the Center of Registers, or there are these smaller local branches, you know. Yeah. Before that, yes, you can. I personally do very little research because I focus on educational work. People sometimes ask to do some research, but there are people who focus only on doing the research. So definitely. You can find someone who can do it. I usually try to help a little bit and then let the person do the further research on their own. That's so. Yeah, but it's possible definitely if you know that they are listed in the German census. How do you reach German census? It's not online. You need to contact the archive or, specific family or specific village. But there is also this volunteer initiative, and it's actually, the website is census.lp. It doesn't have a lot records indexed yet, but it already has some, and you might find some family there in that on that website. You can try to look it up. It's a little bit complicated to use, but after you get the gist, you can find some information. Will you be able to share your own contact information if we have additional questions, or you prefer to keep that private? Thanks so very much. No, I mean, my contact information is on my website, so I don't mind at all. This is my email here. I have put it in the chat. Again, these are the links to my website. My website is, I'll quickly explain it. My website provider, they don't allow me to have like a translation of the whole website. So I have a separate section in English, Strong Word Genealogy, so you'll see it. And then there are these two courses that are going to happen. So the first one, the main one, for genealogy work, where you actually learn how to use the resources, online resources, and also how to find and analyze the actual record. So I'll talk about that. And then the second one will be more coaching. In researching Lithuanian church records from the 1800s, are you able to read and understand the church handwriting that is in Russian or Polish? They are impossible to understand for English speakers. Okay, I'll just say this. when any Lithuanian person starts to look at the records, they have the same reaction. I don't understand anything. Even if we look at the Lithuanian record starting from 1918, still people start to say, you know, oh, I don't understand it. It's in Lithuanian. Then they start reading and they say, okay, can you translate this to me from Lithuanian? Because it's the same Lithuanian, but you cannot understand the handwriting. But again, one of the misconceptions about Russian records is that people think it's a different language than it is now, but it's not old Russian. These Russian documents of 19th century and 20th century, they are not old Russian. They are just Russian. They have some older symbols that are not used in Russian language anymore, but they are not old Russian. If you would look at the old Russian documents, it's earlier times, well, I know Russian, I wouldn't be able to understand them. Now, if we look at Polish, Polish are my least favorite. I don't like them, but you need to look at them. So the main idea is to know how to alter the names back to Lithuanian and to know where to look in the records. There are specific places you need to look into, and then you can do it. You know, you can definitely do it. You just need practice and you need to put in time. When I have started, I couldn't understand them. You know, and to this day, for example, if it's a difficult handwriting, I need to look longer into Polish records or into Latin records. But, you know, it's possible. You need to look up some things. You need to look up some words if you don't know them. You don't know the language. Definitely, but it's possible. Any more questions?
Can I ask one in words instead of writing, if that's possible?
Yeah, of course.
Excellent. Well, thank you. This has been fascinating. I took my first trip to Vilnius with my daughter just a couple of weeks ago, and it was fascinating. And I really related to your story about the grandmother not giving the children milk. And as a result, the children had very strong feelings against the grandmother and thus Lithuania entirely. So my mother was like that for similar reasons. So her interest in the heritage, family heritage was non-existent. And I think she missed a huge opportunity to bring that richness to our life. So I'm trying to do that with our family. The one thing that I was really struck by because of the research that I was doing is this notion of the ending of names. Because I have the name of my great grandfather was Karalunas. On his gravestone, it was Karaluliunas. And then on his wife's birth certificate, it was Karoliaus. So 3 different versions of that same name. And I wonder if you have any quick advice aside from doing the shortened, just doing the front end, leaving off the letters at the end. Is there any other way to navigate except to just plow through those records?
Okay, so where do I start? So the thing with records, if you look at the records from here, from Lithuania, you will see all types of distorted versions in Russian, Latin, Polish. In Latin, they are usually colonized. It will be even more crazy.
Okay.
You know, now Catalunas, right?
Karalunas, K-A, on the gravestone, Karalunas.
Karalunas, okay.
Karalunas.
Yes. Now the I after L is just typical pronunciation. You would need to add that I, you know?
You would need to add the I. Yes. Okay.
Because
okay.
otherwise it would, yeah, if it's pronounced softly, because each consonant in Lithuanian language, in Lithuanian sound system, they have soft version and hard version. Well, let us say, you know, they are palatalized and not palatalized. And So if it's Karalunas, then it will include this little I. Yeah. And other versions will be, you know.
Yep.
Something.
Okay. And I also found on the birth certificate that I actually wrote down from visiting a relative 30 years ago, I just wrote directly in the Lithuanian language. Even the village that we went to, we found our village, Dupak Dupaklonio in Lithuanian, but when it translated in Google Translate, it translated it to Dubaklonius. So is the IO always transliterated or translated to us or is at the end? No. Okay.
No.
Okay.
This is already with inflections. These
Okay.
are grammatical cases.
Okay.
So this ending, but it's not always like that, not for all words, but for this one, letters IO means it's a genitive case, possessive
Okay.
case. It's a
Okay.
grammatical form.
Yep.
And yeah, if it's, each, let's say, each Lithuanian noun is either feminine or masculine. So in this case, it's masculine. So it's, in most cases, masculine nouns. It doesn't matter if they are titles or names or etc. They will end in letter S for the nominative case, for the main form. But for other cases, there are 7 cases.
Okay, that's
Okay.
important to know. I studied Russian in college, but that was a long, long time ago. So I get the concept. That's important. So when I enter those first letters of the name in the database, do I need to put a truncation symbol at the end, like an asterisk, or
No,
just
no.
Okay, okay,
Those that I have showed you, like limits, no, you
yeah,
you just
okay,
put the beginning.
perfect.
Another important thing about the endings is surnames, right? And people are confused about surnames because male surnames, female unmarried and female married, all have different endings, right? And suffixes.
Right,
And
right.
for different names, there are subtypes. For example,
Right.
if I take the male surname Vilkas, then his daughter will be Vilkaitė. But if I take the surname of Vaitkus, his daughter will be Vaitkutė.
So it's
Yeah.
impossible for us to do this research without help from a Lithuanian speaker, pure and simple, right? I mean, that's because, and I'll stop talking in just one second. But again, this birth certificate for my grandma, for one of my great grandmothers, who was Dorata Karalunas on the grave on the certificate, on her birth certificate it was Dorata Yakamari, and I think from some other information I found a Yakavonis. So I wonder whether the Yakamari was which was the maiden name, could have ended up being Yakavonis for the married name. I don't know, but this is very helpful to understand the challenges associated with it.
Yeah, sorry. If you want, you can email me and I'll look at them, okay? Because
Okay.
yes. I'm sorry, because the pronunciation is probably a bit different and then I cannot,
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. But this has been fascinating. I've lived in Chicago now for almost 20 years, and it's only now that I discovered the Lithuanian Heritage Center after this trip. So I'm in the right place. All of my family went to a fabric industrial town in Massachusetts called Lawrence, Massachusetts. And there were a huge number of Lithuanians who emigrated there in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So that's where I'm going to start. Final question. Is there, in addition to Family Search, have you found that one of the other commercial databases like Ancestry.com or any of the other ones have more Lithuanian records than others?
To my knowledge, Ancestry, MyHeritage, good for immigrants or for looking into other people's trees. That's a good starting point, no? When you want to find like living family, especially if you do DNA testing. But the actual record, the books, Family Search is the best out of all of them,
Okay.
And then of course you need to learn how to navigate Lithuanian this electronic archive system.
Yeah.
AIS. Yeah. Otherwise, no.
Okay. Well, thank you. This has been absolutely tremendous. Really appreciate it. And great to get to know the organization here in Chicago as well. So it's been great for me.
Thank you. We have another question here in the comments. Is it true that families destroyed photos to protect themselves if their family members left Lithuania? My grandfather went AWOL from Russian military in 1913 and came to the US. Yes. Well, they would try to reach out, and sometimes even, how do I say this? They would find family members and they would, so you couldn't show the connection. For example, if I look at my great-great-grandma's deportation file, it says that her husband was her second marriage. My great-great-grandpa was already, he passed away, and then she had a second marriage, and they said that in the file, they gave a reason for the deportation, which was, of course, a fake reason, but they said that the family supports the capitalist America because they had brothers and sisters in the States. That was enough reason for them to give invitation, for them to be deported. Although the reasons were different, they had too much land, they owned too much land. But and people didn't want for government or for people who would give them to government to find letters, to find pictures, would try to hide them. If they had any problems with the government, they would try to either hide them or destroy them. And I think that's one of the reasons why still older generation people, they burn the pictures, and sometimes you might still hear this. I don't want anyone to find them, anyone who isn't supposed to find them. Although there is no problem anymore, you can't have old family pictures. But that's the reason people give. I didn't know where they will go after I pass away. I didn't want anyone who is not supposed to find them to find them. Well, of course, another reason is that people don't like to have funeral pictures because it's not nice to look at them. So then they burn the funeral pictures. That's another reason. But basically, people burn documents. Well, thank you. It was a lovely time and lovely questions, actually. Thank you for being active. The questions, it's always nice.
Will we know when your course is for September? Will that be on your website?
Yeah. Okay. Again.
Is that going to be in English?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
So these are specifically, if the description on my website is in English, that means the course is in English.
Gotcha.
This one, Lithuanian Genealogy 101, it starts 14th September.
Perfect. Wonderful. Great to meet you. And thank you, Storunas, for organizing this. It's been absolutely fantastic for me.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Thank you. I think we all enjoyed this so much and it was so helpful. So thank you to all of you who are involved in arranging it and participating.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Sure.
This was excellent.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye now. Have a nice weekend.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
So thank you, Evelina, for a wonderful lecture, and thank you everyone who attended today. If you would like additional assistance performing a genealogical search, please visit Evelina's website, Facebook page, Facebook group, or contact Evelina directly. We will include her phone number and email address in the follow-up email that will be sent along with the recording of this lecture to everyone here in a few days. If you would like to stay informed of future Lithuanian Heritage Club lectures such as this one, please consider joining our club to receive email updates about upcoming programming. We will include a sign-up link to join the club in the same email. Our next online lecture will be on October 9th about the history of Lithuanian displaced persons presented by Robertas Vitas of the Lithuanian Research Center. More information about this lecture will be available in September. As always, if you would like to learn more about everything else the Lithuanian World Center has to offer, please visit our website, lcenter.org. So that concludes our time today. Thank you again, Evelina, and thank you to everyone who attended. I wish you all a great day, and we hope to see you next time.